Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Ahlan wa sahlan. My name is Liaquat Zaman. We're going through 40 hadith of Mulla Ali Qari. Hope you guys are understanding this series at the moment. This is a very useful little collection. It's got some nice small hadith in there and it can be memorized as well. If you guys have not seen the rest of my series, please check out the hadith, check out the series inshallah ta'ala, and check out my channel Roots of Knowledge. And without any delay, let's start with today's hadith. Alright, so we have reached hadith number 21. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Allahumma salli wa sallim wa barik ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Al-fakhidhu awratun. The thighs are to be considered as private parts. Ibn Abbas radiyallahu ta'ala anhu related from the Prophet ﷺ that he said the thighs are private parts. So this is narrated by Imam Tirmidhi, and this is basically the hadith over here. And we are inshallah going to be looking at the sort of meaning of this then. What does this exactly refer to and entail? So first of all, the concept in Islam of nakedness. This is an important concept that we have. When it comes to nakedness, the reality of nakedness is it boils down to what we understand as privacy. Yeah, and greater than that, it goes down to the concept of protecting from fornication. This is the greater meaning that we have over here, objective, which is protection from fornication. So, like we mentioned in previous videos, if you remember, we talked about the importance of marriage. Here, I'll be talking about the importance of privacy. So, if you have a man and you have a woman, the man and the woman obviously have slightly different anatomical or parts of the body. And so there's certain parts that have to be considered to be covered in front of others. So there are two times when you have to cover. Right, so one is in salah, in prayer. One is when you are in front of non-mahrams, non-family members. Yeah, so in front of non-family members, there's certain coverings that you have to do. So for the original privacy is for the private parts. For the men, it's this area, and for the women, it's this area as well. So this area is considered to be private. The genitalia is considered to be something that has to be covered up, should be concealed, and no one basically should see any of this. Even your close family members should not see any of this. What the close family members can actually see is, so from the males, from the navel, from the belly button, all the way down to the knees. Right, so all the way down to the knees. This area must be covered up. And then everything else above can be seen, and everything else below can be seen. Okay, this is for the male. And for the female, everything from below the breastline, all the way down to the knees, all of this has to be covered up, concealed, and everything above and everything below can be seen by the close family members. The arms and the shins and the feet and the face and the hair, all this can be seen. This is something that the scholars have mentioned from various narrations and various verses in the Quran of the importance of covering up. However, in front of the non-mahrams and in front of, in salat for that matter, it's the same. This is the same. Okay, so this is the same for salat as well. And in front of non-mahrams and salat for a woman, then the matter, so this is the same over here. For a woman, it's actually all of her body, apart from her face, hands, and feet. This is according to many of the scholars. These are the exemptions, and everything has to be covered up. And so the Prophet ﷺ, he mentioned the importance of the covering up the thigh. So if this is the leg, the thigh, this area has to be covered up. Now, in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, the Arabs, or in terms of Jahiliyyah, Arabs would not really have any sort of like importance of covering their body. In fact, it was known that they used to perform tawaf naked, and showing these kind of parts of the body was something that was a norm. However, when Islam came, Islam restricted this. So the fakhid, the awra, the thigh must be covered, the Prophet ﷺ said. It must be covered, it must be concealed from others, even from your own family members. This is something that has to be covered. And this is something which the Sharia puts in place so that it doesn't lead to fornication as well. So these are measures that are taken by the Sharia, by Islam, for us to take extreme caution when it comes to not falling into fornication. So this is why the majority of the scholars are on this opinion of that the thigh must be covered in front of all others. As for the knee itself is something which is disputed amongst the scholars. So the knee is something, some of the scholars say that the knee can be exposed, and some say no, actually it has to be concealed. Anyway, going back to this whole concept itself, it's important for a person to understand the limits of exposing one's body as well. Sometimes, we tend to like to wear certain types of clothing, but we have to remember, Islamically, our bodies have to be covered. So there's several things that we have to remember when it comes to rules of covering. The first rule is that the clothing must cover the nakedness. Number 2, and it must not be tight. So loose, it must not be tight such that you can see the shape of the thighs and the shape of the genitalia or other parts of the body. It must be loose. Number 3, it must not be transparent. It must be something which is thick enough so that underneath cannot be seen. It's not translucent. So these are 3 main rules that we have when it comes to covering of the body. As long as a person fulfills these criteria for covering of the body, then inshallah, then that person can wear those particular types of material. Yes, there are some rules regarding, for example, wearing clothing that imitates a different religion. That's something we're not allowed to do. But other than that, generally, this type of clothing would be sufficient for pray salat in and to go out in as well. And one last thing over here, which is that if someone else is wearing clothing which is inappropriate, then the Sharia has told us another measure to take, which is to guarding your gaze. To guard your gaze is a very important thing. Person should guard their gaze as much as possible. Whether it's from males or whether it's from females, right? It's important for us to take these measures. So if a person is not covering up appropriately, then we take the measure of guarding our gaze, just so that the lustful gazes do not occur. And that's it basically. So this is the hadith with regards to the covering of the thigh, and importance of covering up the nakedness in Islam, and also that the awra, the covering up, is something which is important for salat and in front of non-mahrams. And rules of covering are that the area is covered, loose clothing, and it's thick enough so that it does not become visible or translucent, and guarding of the gaze at the time of lustful gazes. Jazakumullah khair. Hope you guys benefit from this. Thank you very much for watching this video, and inshallah I will see you guys next time. Thank you again to all my patrons for all your support. It means a lot to me. Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.